Hello, friends. Welcome back to the final installment of our Modern Masters series. And it is with great pleasure I have Preslav here with me, otherwise known as Never Play Fast Anti or Never Play Slow Anti as well. So, welcome.
Hello, guys. Hello, RTP. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a true pleasure for me to be here today with you.
And you might notice a bit different, as usually I've invited other commentators to comment on the top 10, but our number one here today is actually here right in front of you. It is Preslav. He is the number one of the Modern Masters, and I want to introduce as to why we at Antichess Law have selected him as our number one Modern Master. The over the board Amsterdam tournaments have been running for the last 4 years. And it is quite amazing that every time Preslov has found himself winning these over the board tournaments against extremely strong players. So there's no other greater proof of how good you are when you've proven it in person over the board. Not just that, when you look at the head-to-head records against all our other Modern Master players, he has the best head-to-head record. He has a positive record against nearly all of these players, not to mention being over 2,500 the last 2 years, um, multiple winners of many, many tournaments, including the yearly Antichess tournament, performing over 2,500. There's so many accolades I could give this man, so I'm very happy that he is a worthy winner and guest today. So, Prislav, why don't you continue on? You can tell us maybe a couple more things about you we don't know, but we're also going to look at a couple of his wonderful games today.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much for the introducing words, RTP. Yeah, maybe I'll first, maybe I'll try to dive a little bit more deeply into the Amsterdam events. So, yeah, I don't really know how I managed to prevail against these guys because in Amsterdam, we all the years we had a very tough competition. I had the pleasure to meet players like Firebatprime the first year, Kex, Bird Fighter, of course, a lot of 22 and 2300s. The next years we had Mental Suicide coming, Step Heath. Also, we had Tugger, of course, very prominent figure in the anti-chess community. And still somehow I managed to win against these guys. I don't know if it's also like the experience I have over the board from playing regular chess or it's just something else. Maybe it's also the stamina because over 2 days we play like 25, 30 games. So you really need to keep your level to the very top in order to be able to win this type of tournaments. But yeah, it's yeah. Also, of course, this is a result of a lot of efforts, a lot of spent time, like just analyzing positions, playing a lot of games, then analyzing where it went wrong. Because for me, to improve, it was really important for me to see where I got wrong and what I did not the way I was supposed to do. So yeah, regarding the last year's yearly, yeah, maybe we can leave a link or something for someone who is interested. But we again had the very top players, and yeah, I managed to keep 2500 performance all the way for the full 5 hours of the tournament. So yeah, like I'm not even sure if I find the right words. It just kind of like comes natural at some point to be that dominant and also like yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Like it's hard to describe. It's just a result of a lot of efforts, as I already said, and also just um yeah, maybe just also finding the right way and the right circumstances and maybe yeah, a lot of stamina as well.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary. So you've got the skill to play. Obviously, Preslav's also a good chess player. Very good. The
Yeah.
stamina to compete, you have to play many, many, many games, but also that willingness to analyze, to improve continuously. Not just learning a few things here and there, but to be the best, you need such a broad knowledge of all aspects of the game. So hopefully that's what we're going to see on display when we look at a couple of these example games of his.
Yeah. So we have selected together two games. This one is against passionate player, also very, very solid and strong guy from India who usually revolves around the 2350s. Here he had 2280, which is a bit below his level. And I had the black pieces, and he started with e3, which is a bit surprising because he would usually start with c4. And I didn't really want to go for some very deep theoretical wines. And instead of going for my usual c5 response, I decided to go for knight h6, which leads to a more of a positional game in most cases. You don't have these very forced lines following. So bishop a6, of course, sacking the bishop takes. Now knight a3, trying to create some knight b5 threats. We have c6. I kind of like consolidate the b5 square. And now we have the mild knight e2, which is actually a very dangerous move because we have a very tricky threat following. If I don't take this into mind, we have g4 following on the next move, and after I take the pawn with the knight, we have rook g1 with rook g7 threat, and then my bishop will grab all of his pieces. Therefore, I pushed g6, avoiding this threat, and now we have b3 trying to like open up some space on the queen side and also like some type of development. And now we have queen a5, like I threatened queen a3. And here passionate played knight b5. I decided to take with the queen. Yeah, maybe also a good idea might have been to undouble the pawns, but really not sure. It's hard to judge what's the best move here, which piece I should use to take his knight.
Can
So
I
I,
ask about that? Because most people
yeah,
might
sure.
think to undouble the pawns would be the priority, but yeah, why did you actually ultimately decide the queen here?
Because I would maybe also like to have more threats here. And also, I don't really want to keep my queen on the a5 where he has his rook. So eventually, if I'm not careful enough, maybe I might end up opening up my rook myself. So I just wanted to get away from the a5 basically. And now my queen after queen b5 takes a completely different direction. So we have knight c3. Of course, he decides to keep the knight. My only move is queen b3. ab, which kind of surprised me actually. I would just keep my rook here and just take with the c pawn. I wouldn't really want to open the a file here in this case. Of course, it looks dangerous because now he hits the a6 pawn, and I have over controlled this pawn basically. I overprotected with my knight and my bishop. But maybe the move he missed is actually that I could also push the pawn. So after a5, we have rook a5, and now a move that is not very easy to spot. I played bishop to g7. And here the thing is that I counted like after rook a7 and bishop c3, like if he takes on d7, I just take with my bishop and I'm winning right away. And if he takes on a8, I just also continue taking. But at the end, it turns out that I'm the one that finishes the all this race of takes first. So of course he took dc3, which is the best move. And after rook a7, queen d7, I saw that I could slide my rook here over to the d file. And here the thing is that even though I have my rook on the completely open d file, he cannot do anything. because first I attack the d2 squares, but he over controls it with the bishop and the king, and also the d1 square where he could potentially sack his king. But also again, he also has the rook on h1, which also controls the d1 square. So it turned out I was completely fine here. So instead of stacking something on the d file, Passionate decided to go for g4. We have knight to g4, of course, and now rook g1. Tricky move, but also on the other hand, he decides to get rid of his most powerful piece in the endgame, and we are getting close actually to the endgame with all these simplifications. But here again, you really have to count where to take basically. Because if I had taken on f2, for example, we have rook g6, fg, king f2, and it's like a decent game. Not like it's a bit hard to judge. Maybe black is still better, but with knight e3, which is actually the move I played, I could count that now I also attack the pawn on c2. So after rook g6, instead of taking fg, I took on c2. So now I'm kind of also lucky that I have the pawn on c6 here. So now he's forced to take it. And now we have knight e1, rook c8. And now I'm completely fine. Like I don't have a take that falls. So it's up to me to decide now what to do. But also, again, it's a very dangerous position because like he attacks my knight on b8 and also my king on e8, and I have my rook on the back rank here. So I cannot really avoid him taking any of the pieces on the back rank. And also we have f3 following or bishop d2, which might even look losing for black at first sight. However, I played the best move rook d2, which is very unnatural because now I'm kind of like forcing myself to keep taking also his pieces. But again, everything just came down to counting here. We have rook b8, rook f2, rook e8, and now rook h2, and now rook e7. And it might look that Passionate is kind of fine because now he attacks my knight. But the thing here is that I played rook to h5 because if he takes my knight, we have rook e5, f5, rook f8, and h6, and I win the game. Or in the case with the move Passionate played rook f7, now I have knight d3, again another intermediate, forcing myself to take his pieces. We have rook h7, knight c1, rook h8, knight b3, rook h5, knight d4, cd4, and I won the game. Just everything settled absolutely perfectly for me in this case with all these intermediates. Here, I wouldn't say it's like pure skills. It was also pretty much about counting how many pieces I can take when I play a certain move in a couple of moves. Like after 2, 3 moves, do I get more pieces or he takes more pieces?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
just
and
comes
that
down to the counting, doesn't it? I mean, really, so many times the end game just
yeah,
it works out beautifully sometimes, not always, but yeah, with
yeah,
that knowledge, it can really help out.
yeah, exactly. And now the second game is also really interesting. I played it against the best Polish player. He's from Poland, PF. I would really also wish to see him in Amsterdam one day. I had the white pieces and I opened with d3. We have c5, Polish defense. We have bishop b5, the Watkins recommendation, and now we have queen c7, which is the most common response. We have bishop d7, queen f3, pretty common line, very theoretical here. And here we come to the point where I decided to go for queen f7 instead of the supposedly winning queen b7 line, but it's really, really hard for a human being to convert it. And with perfect play, black can achieve a draw here, but it's a very tricky line, the queen f7 line. So we have king f7, g4, pretty common again. Rook h3, now d3, rook e3, king e3, c4, dc4, and now here we come to the point which I would say was very crucial for PF to lose the game at the end. He played bishop to b5. Here the best move is bishop to h3, kind of like deciding to keep the bishop and also like preparing b5, knight c6, bishop d7, rook c8, all these takes here. But again, he played bishop b5 instead, so I took b6, of course, now again threatening knight c6 or knight a6. c4, I tried to push the pawn further and kind of like also push b6 at a suitable time. And after ab, his rook just opens up on the a file. We have knight c6 here, of course, natural sacrifices. And here a6, another move which I don't really like because we are in somewhat in an endgame already, and PF just decides to get rid of his most powerful piece in an endgame, which is the rook. So of course I extend and develop like grabbing some space. Also in the center with knight c3, we have rook a2, rook a2. Now g5, smart move, pinning my bishop. So respectively, I also went for b4 to pin his bishop as well. We have king f6, and now a very, very wild move follows knight d5, forcing myself to either grab
Wow.
the pawn on e7 or his king. But again, I could see that, yeah, something like king f7 takes. He's really stuck here, very locked. The bishop is pinned. I would just run my pawn to promotion, promote to a king, and then eventually sack my king on his king, and then he had to grab my pieces with his bishop. But he played e5 instead, which is very smart actually. We have knight f6 grabbing my pinned pawn here, and now we are supposed to think for a while here because he threatens e4 and g4 where my knight exactly hits and also my king. My bishop is pinned, so yeah, it's just a hard choice what to do. But eventually, I decided to get rid of my bishop on d2 just to avoid this pin. And here it turns out that after g4 or e4, I'm just winning because he's forced to push the pawns. He cannot just suck his both pawns at the same time. Um, Here he pushed e4, of course, king d3. I have to play that. I have no other move because I over control the e3 square here. So e4, king d3 takes, rook a4, d2, and now c7, which is absolutely fantastic because I just stop all promotions. I really stop all promotions here. Like bishop promotion doesn't work because I just have rook a8, bishop g4, and rook c8, and he stalemates me and I'm winning. I I also stop rook promotion. For example, we have rook d4, and now I myself promote to a rook g4, rook c4, and I win the game. So, like king, like of course I'm not gonna mention a knight or a king. Maybe actually let's just look at how a knight wins. It's basically kind of like the same. And now rook promotion. Now the knight is forced to uh, get away from the c file. But yeah, so and like king really looks like the most natural promotion, but now I played just a fantastic move, knight f2, which is a very like common idea to place your knight on the second file, on the neighbor file of the king when the king is on the back rank. So right here, the king is forced to get away from the d1 square, which I attack with my knight. So, and here, of course, PF resigned, but if he had kept playing, maybe something like king c1, I would just sack and then promote to a bishop, and a rook and a bishop win against the king.
Wow, that was such an amazing display of of knowledge and particularly the end game. That was so cool. It can be very easy for a lot of pressure to get to you. There's like those two pawns marching down. You think your knight might accidentally cover something, but it was cool, it was calm, and it was calculated. That was the best part of all, where you really have to allow for all of those different promotions. And sometimes, even if you think knight could be one of the difficult ones, this is beautiful because it actually reminds me of a knight exception. One of Penny Seven's specialties. He loves doing puzzles about endings, and if you ever check out his endgame studies, this is a beautiful example of the knight landing here, and the king just has to move away. Like he's just not going to win, and then the nice squares really pan out. So two masterful games from the modern master, from the best of the best. So, Prislav, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for the invitation as well, RTP. It was a great pleasure. Yeah, I'm really glad to be part of this series, and also I'm extremely thankful for everyone who decided that I should be the top player in this series. It's really amazing, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys both online and over the board, so we can play some games together.
And don't forget, you can watch Preslav's games on lichess anytime. You can also follow his streams, and you can see all of his great results. That was one of the yearly ones he's won, so you can see the yearly champion is there, and what a fantastic result. Lastly, before we go, I want to thank all of you who have stayed with this series. If you've watched to the end of this video or if you've watched all of our videos, we thank you so much for your time. Hope you enjoyed hearing from all of these wonderful players. There's a few people in particular I really want to thank as well for their help, particularly the co-hosts who have done this with me. So, of course, Firebatprime, The Unknown Guy Reborn, Sudana K2, Kellogzz, Preslav, you, of course, and and others as well who have actually helped behind the scenes preparing. Um, Cidic 1911 has provided so many of the games for us to see. So thank you so much to him. Thank you so much to others in the community who have shown been able to show off these great games. Some of them we've selected. So those involved with Game of the Month before, Queen of Blunders, cflour, Tolius, Passionate Player, cflour, and so forth. And to Tone and to Firebat and to Flo, who have been great leaders in the community. And everyone else, if I haven't mentioned you, thanks so much for being there, being a part of it. All right, so we'll leave it there. Thank you from Antichess Law, and I'll see you next time.